if I'm working with someone on a retreat, say, to figure out what's next for them, and part of that is changing the way, learning to look at a different way to think and believe about their goals and their plans, right? Instead of having it be all action, it has to be kind of a hybrid of thoughts and beliefs and action steps that really align, right? So for me, when I see the dots click for people on a retreat, right? Or when I'm working with somebody and I see it start to come together, that is my purpose being revealed to me.
That's Alison Katzkowski, a 30-year veteran in the health and fitness space. Today on Living Big Mindfully, Alison and I are exploring purpose, the importance of staying relevant, and being open to all the possibilities out there. This is great timing for this conversation as we head into a new year. Alison starts out with a bit about her background, her fitness journey, and all the twists and turns that have got her to where she is today. We talk about the power of living wide open and living intentionally. And then we take a deep dive into purpose. Alison helps us learn about what purpose is and how it looks different for everyone, why purpose is important, and how you can begin to tune in and see your purpose evolved. You know, and if you're feeling a little stuck or a little lost with this purpose thing, no worries. Alison has you covered with her 3 daily strategies, which honestly makes so much sense. No surprise, Alison rounds things off with some wise sage advice. You know, a life without purpose is very challenging. It can feel like a boat lost and adrift at sea. You know, if that resonates with you, then I sincerely hope that through this conversation, you'll find some sparks of inspiration. So thank you, as always. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you. Please jump on to katechampionauthor.com to claim your gift copy of my latest ebook, 12 Ways to Care for Your Nervous System. I'm giving this as a thank you for all your support and to help support you through the holidays, because I know it can be a wild, crazy time sometimes. So jump on, get your copy, 12 Ways to Care for Your Nervous System. Download the goodness, katechampionauthor.com. That's enough for me. Here's Alison. Hello, Alison. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you.
I am so glad you're here, and I'm really excited about jumping in today. We're going to kind of have a chat around purpose. But first of all, I want to hear a little bit about you and your story and how you got to where you are today.
Okay. I've spent most all of my career in the health and fitness industry. And it's a story that I like to say it's the plan B that turned into a plan A for me. I wanted to go to physical therapy school when I was in high school. And I basically planned my whole college plan around that. And when that didn't work out, I was encouraged to get a graduate degree in a related field. And health and fitness just seemed to be it just kept coming back to me. You know, I think sometimes, and I think we can think about this in many areas of life, sometimes what we need is right in front of us and we just don't want to see it. And that's kind of how it was with me. I was a competitive athlete growing up, and I started lifting weights when I was 13, and I was just always in the health and fitness arena somewhere. And I think the universe will direct us and keep directing us until we're ready to listen. And that's what happened.
Yeah, that's lovely. So tell me about competing so young as an athlete. Tell me a little bit about the influence that had on your life.
I started swimming when I was 9. I grew up around the water. My family, we have a vacation place at a lake here in North Carolina, Lake Norman, and it was where we would always go in the summer. And so I learned to swim when I was really little, and I've always enjoyed the water and always wanted to be a good swimmer. And some friends, some people in my class were on the city swim team, and I knew that was something that I wanted to do. And as I got into it and I made the commitment that this was going to be like my thing, my folks were 100%, they weren't pushing it. They were like, if you're in, we're in, just commit to it. If you're going to go, then if you're going to do it, then go all in. And that's what I did. And so I swam through high school and a little bit of college, and then I got a little burned out and just decided I wanted to pursue some other things. So, and it's like I said, we had started weightlifting as a group when I was swimming. And so I got into it more and more as a student. And that led me into a competitive career in fitness and bodybuilding. And I did that for almost 10 years. And once I got to the end of that, I decided I wanted to get into the private sector a little bit more and, continue to work more with people one-on-one and in groups, which is really how I built my business. And about 7-8 years ago, I pivoted and I'm doing a lot more business coaching now. I coach something called the hybrid business model, which is a combination of in-person and online. And as you know, doing a lot of retreats. So I guess to answer your question, I think my sports and athletic background really taught me the importance of staying focused, but being open to trying other things and seeing how other things can work so that you can continue to excel. Because, as we get older, the game changes. But that doesn't mean that what we want to achieve has to change. We just have to learn to think about it differently.
That's right. Where are you now with your fitness journey? What does that look like today? And how old are you, if you don't mind me asking? How old are you?
No problem. I'm 55 and
okay.
I work out just about every day during the week. I don't do any more competing. I've done a couple of Ironman triathlons. I'm not a big runner, believe it or not. I've done some 5Ks and 10Ks here and there. I still love to swim recreationally. I enjoy bike riding recreationally. I really haven't gotten involved from a competitive perspective with anything since I turned 50, really, because I'm feeling more of a calling to help other business owners really innovate and grow their businesses. I feel like, especially since the pandemic, the business world has changed, especially my industry. And I feel like we're really on the cusp of, in 5 years, it's going to look completely different again. And I think we have to embrace what's unique and different about us. But at the same time, we have to be willing to kind of go with how things are changing so that you stay relevant. Because there's never been a more important time for people to embrace health and fitness than now.
Yeah. No, I agree. I totally agree. And I think it's vital. I think we're learning so much more about the body and what we need nutrition-wise, what we need movement-wise, what we need as we age. I'm 60 and just totally thinking about the next season and just really want to stay fit and healthy and strong, I think. And also independence, right? It's a certain independence, right? You can say
absolutely.
Fit and healthy and strong for the long haul. There's absolutely an independence that comes with that. And that's not just physically, that's mentally, right? As
absolutely.
Well.
Could not agree more. I was reading a statistic the other day and it literally about made my eyes pop out of my head that 2/3 of adults as they get older cannot stay in their homes. This is why we're seeing such a surge in senior living communities and it's why it's such the baby boomer and the Gen X, which is what I am, is exploding in terms of, housing options because people are losing the ability to live their lives independently simply because they're losing strength. And that is a direct function of lifestyle. It's a function of the choices that you're making every day, how you're choosing to live, how you're choosing to take care of your mind and body. It's all connected. And for people listening who are in health and fitness or health and wellness or coaching or some service-based industry or something related to that, we have to think about that because we're not getting any younger. But it doesn't mean that life has to change.
Yeah, I want to say amen, sister, to all of the above.
Yeah, it's really a head scratcher when you think about it. That you sit there and you think, well, I'm strong, I'm fine, I can continue to do things, but are you? Are you doing everything in your power to ensure that you stay that way? And that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. So my mind is going to, my podcast is called Living Big Mindfully. And I know that you have this expression about living wide open.
Yeah.
I'd love to chat a little bit about your philosophy and maybe how it connects with mine. So let's chat about that for a moment. Tell me about living wide open. What does that mean for you?
Well, for me, it's about possibility. It's about what are you choosing to think and believe on a daily basis that's going to bring you into the same room with your future self. one of the things that I love to talk about in my programs and when I work with clients, so this is in person, online, and when we're on retreat, is the future version of you is sitting across the room from you right now. It's not somebody that you have to go and find, at a networking event, or once I do X, Y, and Z and do all these things, then I'll be in a position to be that person. There is no concept of time, and what makes it difficult for us to comprehend as to why we come up with the excuses, well, I can't do that until this, and that can't happen until I get to here. It's because of what we're choosing to think about it. So for me, it's about, what am I doing every day to embrace being that future version of me? Because it's really more about how you're being and not really what you're doing. I mean, what you're doing is important. You still have to take action, but it's about who you're choosing to be. And the more you embrace that, the more you have the potential to really experience everything that your life can offer you. And, we create the lack in our life because of what we're choosing to think and believe. And some of that is programs. Some of that is what we were taught. Some of that is the people that we're choosing to spend time with. Some of it is how we're choosing to live every single day. And, in my 30-year health and fitness career, I have heard so many negative stories from people as to and people really believe that. They believe it to be a fact that I can't do that until this happens. But really, what if that weren't true? What if you just simply made a conscious decision every day to be more like the future version of yourself? What could possibly happen? What would possibly appear in front of you at that point if you chose to do that? So it doesn't have to be as hard as we make it, I guess is what I'm saying. And so part of what I teach in any of my programs, whether you work with me on a health and fitness goal or you work with me on something in your business, is that everything and anything that you want is available to you. And to me, that's what living life wide open is about. It's about experiencing what's possible for you.
Yeah, I love that. And there's so much wisdom. So as you're talking, this is what's coming up for me. You said, we have, waking up and living your life and the way that how are you being today, right? How are you showing up today? The first thing in the morning, the first thought, right, it really sets the rudder for the day, right? So how are you being? How are you waking up in the morning? Yep. And I think that's where that, for me, intersects with living big mindfully, because for me, that's all about living with intention, right?
Yes.
Intention, so sitting in the morning and saying, how do I really want to use my time today? How do I really want to show up? When am I going to work out? How am I going to treat my body today? So it's really this minute by minute kind of intention.
Well, and the majority of people in the world today are reacting in their life. They're reacting to what they hear. They're reacting to what they hear from somebody, what they see on the news, what they read on social media. We've conditioned ourselves to expect, to understand that certain things are just going to appear, right? And I'm not saying that we're conditioned to believe that we shouldn't work for things. Honestly, I think we're conditioned to believe that we have to work hard for everything or it's not going to happen. But along with that comes kind of a false sense of security that if we check all the boxes, that all these things will happen. And what if that weren't true? What if we learned to think on purpose, to your point, every day? What would happen? How would we show up? What kinds of conversations would we have? How would we treat other people who we're in contact with? How would we treat ourselves? What would our daily self-care look like? These are the questions we should be asking ourselves.
Absolutely. And I love that point, right? I have this thing about when I work with clients talking about, okay, are you reacting or are you responding? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's a huge difference between reacting, to the firestorm and the shitstorm that's constantly coming, or
that will happen. It will happen often because life happens. There's, the other thing while you're talking about this is a good time, I think, to bring this up. There's so many people out there that just say they want to wait until everything settles down. I hear that all the time. Oh, I got to wait until things settle down. I'm like, well, you're going to be waiting a long time because life stays busy. It just does. And it's often when everything is not making sense, is often a time to adopt something new for yourself because you're teaching yourself you can do something difficult, right? And that's a good life lesson, I think, for anything that you're dealing with, you know?
I love that. I have this phrase, life is messy, right? Life is messy and it's not going to stop being messy, right? So you have to, again, sit with intention within the mess and say, okay, what's really important to me here? What's really my focus? What's really my direction here? What do I really want here? And again, sometimes that's multiple times a day, right? Checking in multiple times a day. So great point. It's a great point. All right, so let's take a little bit of a dive into purpose, right? I invited you on the show because some of your content around purpose was really interesting to me. I was really curious. So let's talk about purpose, what it is, what it isn't, and why is it important to have some kind of a North Star out there?
Well, it's funny that you bring up the North Star because so much of what I teach in my programs centers around using a compass. Because your future self, in order to meet your future self, it requires you to move in a certain direction, right? And when do we use a compass? We use a compass when we don't feel like we're going in the right direction, right? When we feel like we're off track. We feel like I'm doing all these things and I'm not getting to where I need to be, right? So in terms of a North Star, to me, that is an anchor point. And to me, that's what good habits are. It goes beyond just good habits. It's about your superpowers. It's about the gifts that you were given. It's about being able to use those gifts in the way that was intended for us to do. And somebody said something the other day in a conversation, and it really struck me, and I'll just repeat it here, is that your purpose isn't something that you do, and it's not something that you go get. It's something that happens when people achieve what it is that you want them to achieve. That is your purpose. So time out. Say that again. I really want to make sure I'm getting that. Say that again. Your purpose isn't something that you go do, as in an action item on a list, right? It's not something that you go find. Well, I'm going to go do my research and find my purpose. How many times do we hear that, right? Your purpose is something that is revealed to you when you're with somebody or you're working with somebody or you're doing something and the desired outcome happens, right? So like, for example, for me, if I'm working with someone on a retreat, say, to figure out what's next for them, and part of that is changing the way, learning to look at a different way to think and believe about their goals and their plans, right? Instead of having it be all action, it has to be kind of a hybrid of thoughts and beliefs and action steps that really align, right? So for me, when I see the dots click for people on a retreat, right? Or when I'm working with somebody and I see it start to come together, that is my purpose being revealed to me. That is what I feel like I am put on this planet to do more than anything. And I know I'm convinced more and more every day that that's why my initial plan didn't work, that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing because of what I see in my work with people. It's like our purpose is revealed to us every day if we choose to believe that, right? So we have to stop looking for evidence and we have to start really zeroing in with what we're thinking here. And we have to be 100% sold that that's it. But at the same time, and this is going to be probably a little heady for some people, but at the same time, we want to be open and be flexible in that it may look different for people, right? So part of that is just having the confidence and to be able to trust yourself that you'll know what to do. You'll know what bridge to cross when you get there.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, that's leading me down some thinking around intuition and again, intention and having this kind of open kind of heart space, right? And letting things kind of flow, right? Instead of this kind of forcing and pushing and shoving and rigidity around the way things should be or must be.
We have to be taking action. I don't want to sound completely woo-woo and say, oh, just think about it and it'll fall in your lap every day like so many people think. That just makes my head hurt when I read stuff like that. But we have to be intentional. We have to take inspired action. There's a difference between that and just going down the items on the to-do list and feeling that push and sense of urgency, like I've got to get this done by the end of the week. There's got to be a little bit of that, right? But when it's coming from the right place and it's coming from the place in us that's allowing us to step up and become more and more like our future self, that's inspired action. And there's a difference between that and just simply living life. And, well, my day planner says I've got to do all this today, and I'm just going to be focused on that. To me, that's not much of an existence.
Yeah. So tell me again, I maybe missed that piece about, help me get clearer about inspired action. Give me some examples of what that actually might look like.
Well, inspired action to me, when somebody uses that word, and my understanding of it is, and this is something I think is open to interpretation depending on who you talk to, but inspired action to me is coming from a high energetic place within us. So for example, I'll just use a health and fitness example. So if I'm trying to lose weight, or if I'm trying to achieve a certain fitness goal by a certain time frame, inspired action to me is challenging myself during the day. Okay, what decisions can I make today that's going to move me closer to that goal? And it's going to come from a sense of empowerment versus a place of, well, I got to work harder so that I get over here kind of thing, right? It's like we want to be always taking action from a place that challenges us, but at the same time empowers us to step up into a higher version of ourselves. That's what inspires.
Got it. I love that energy that's you talked about, that sense of empowerment, right? It's coming again, it's coming from us, right? We're creating that energy that's kind of pushing us, right, to this vision, right, to this North Star, to this future self. It's like kind of putting a hook out there, and we're just kind of reeling it in, right? We're just
I'll offer up another example. So if, for example, someone like me who really leans a lot on fitness and movement and activity, to me, that's a North Star of mine because it's a rock solid anchor habit. And it's something where I feel empowered. I feel strong. I feel like I'm showing up as a really high version of myself when I'm doing that on a regular basis. So for me, that's an anchor point. And so if I'm in that energy and I'm choosing to work toward my future self on the things that I know I need to make happen, right? I'm making that decision from a much higher place in me than if I'm making a decision from a place in me where I'm being lazy and I'm telling myself a story that I can't do that my body won't do that ship has sailed, then that's not making a decision from a high place. That's when you start searching and hoping and praying that it works out. And how many people wake up every day and say, I'm going to see how today goes. That's not from a high energy place, the person that does that.
Got it. And it's also not from an intentional place either.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. It's just like, well, I'll see what happens. And look, I'll offer one more example is when people make plans. How many times do you invite people or you're planning something and you're like, this is the plan. Are you coming? Now you're either going to hear, yeah, I'd love to, or, well, let me check with my spouse, my partner, my significant other, whatever. Let me see what the kids have going on. Or my favorite, let me see what's happening then. So then I'm like, oh, so you're really saying that unless you get a better offer, you'll be there? Because to me, that's just like people putting themselves in a very powerless place, which just doesn't work for me. When somebody gives me that, I'm like, see ya. You can either buy into the story or not.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah. So what are you feeling right now? I'm picking up some energy. What do you like as you talk through that? What's coming up for you? What are you feeling?
I mean, nothing really. I mean, I'm speaking my truth when I say that. And when
I think that's what there's a power, right? I'm connecting with
it's like power. it's an authenticity within me. When I sense that in somebody, what I'm sensing is that they don't believe in themselves enough, and that they're not sure enough of themselves in order to make that high powered decision. Like, I was just having a conversation with a client last week who we made an appointment for her to get her weekly session in. She comes here to my studio. And then in the morning, she sends me a text and said some reason why she couldn't make it. And it was a very almost, I could just read the energy, and it was almost very anxious to me. Mm. So I didn't respond right away. I just kind of let it sit for a little bit. And then I went back to her and I said, okay, understand. Remember, life happens. What's our plan? Let's make another plan. I was trying to get her out of that and encourage her to make another plan instead of being shut off to the fact that this can't work, and we were able to make another plan as a result. But I sometimes think there's some, truth telling involved. I think we have to call people out sometimes. And I do think that people really want that sometimes. They may not say it verbally, like, I really want you to call me out. But I do think with some people, they not only want it, they really need it. And they're indirectly asking you for it,
Yeah.
And there's a right and a wrong way to handle it. I'm not saying you should belittle somebody when you do it, but we don't do anybody any favors by not being honest and speaking the truth either.
Yeah, I love that. So thank you. I appreciate you kind of expounding on that a little bit. So back to this purpose. What do you think about it changing over the lifespan, kind of evolving and kind of changing over the lifespan? What would you say around that?
Well, I have lots of thoughts around that. And I do think that it's a very individual kind of thing, because I think all of us, we're all born with lots of gifts. Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I think it's very simplistic to say that we were born with one unique gift or one unique superpower or whatever you want to call it. I think we're all born with a lot of gifts. Okay. Because I believe that we live in an abundant world. I believe what creates the lack is what we think about it, what we're taught to believe about it, the people that we choose to spend time with, and what we choose to take in on an energetic basis, every day, whether that's news or emails or work or family stuff or whatever, right? Energy is energy, right? But as far as purpose goes, I feel like it's more of a journey than it is a destination. And I feel like the older we get and the more we learn and the more we're open to what could be possible for us, I think our purpose can take on a number of different forms. But I do think that our best indicator is how we're feeling about it. I think if something really excites you and really energizes you, and you start to notice that, wow, this really isn't as bad as I thought, or this is really a lot more fun than I thought, or that really wasn't as challenging as I thought. I think that's something you have to look at. And I think we're conditioned not to do that because there's a part of us that's afraid of what we're going to find out almost. Because it can be a little weird and uncomfortable. But I also think that the more we allow ourselves to do that, the more we find that there's so many ways that our purpose could actually look like. So I think it really requires us, every day, if you're willing to do the work, to kind of check in with that and kind of see where you are and how satisfied are you feeling, and are you feeling fulfilled, and do you feel lit up with what you're doing? And do you feel like the people around you are moving you more in that direction? And are you feeling, happy? And are you feeling satisfied? And all of that. I think we have to challenge ourselves on that every day. And we have to put people in our world that will challenge us on that too. Because it's not always a fun, pleasant thing, right? I mean, I lost 80% of my business in the 2020 pandemic. And I have never been as close to quitting as I was then, ever, in my entrepreneurial journey. And I started in 1998 and I had almost zero money. I didn't go to the bank and get a loan. I used my credit card and my savings. And I just said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to try it. I'm just going to see what happens. And I just kept telling myself every month, I said, okay, I'm going to get a new client every month. I'm going to get a new client. I'm going to get a new client. And I just kept believing that. And everything just started showing up. And But when when all of that is taken away, I think the true resolve of knowing who you are and believing in who you are and knowing that there's something else out there, the true resolve is when all of that is taken away and the chips are down. What are you choosing to think and believe, right? And for me, that was a big, big, big light bulb moment. It was like, all right, I had to find that version of myself that started out 20 years before, almost. When I didn't know what the plan was. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't even know that I was going to be able to make it. So I had to challenge myself to find that version of myself again. And I feel like that has a lot to do with how we approach purpose. I feel like, at any point in time, everything that we know can be taken away. And so we have to continually check in with ourselves. And depending on what happens in your life and what you go through and what you're challenged with and all of that, there's any number of ways you can look at that. So, and as you get older, things start to take on different meaning. So again, you just have to check in with yourself regularly and take your internal temperature and, learn to kind of and call yourself out. Like if you feel yourself not going to a very good place, you got to say, all right, this just isn't working today. I'm going to go over here until I can clean this up, kind of thing. Right. So I had to do that quite a bit in 2020, but I can say now, I mean, it's almost 2024. So, but I can honestly say I will never be at the point where I'll say I'm glad all that happened. I don't think anybody would say that. Right. But what I can say is that I would not be doing all the things I'm doing now had that not happened. So
that's right.
If anything, I'm grateful for that, and that can be enough. And all of that can be true at the same time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That's a wonderful story, right? It's a wonderful example of what we're talking about here. Absolutely.
Yeah, because you get to decide what it means. You get to decide what things mean for you. And for me, I could have decided that, okay, I'm going to go get a job, because I did spend a lot of time on LinkedIn looking for jobs, which I had never done the whole time I had owned a business. Right.
Can't imagine.
But I mean, I let myself kind of be there for a while because I felt entitled, I mean, let's be honest, there wasn't a whole lot to be excited about during that time. Right. And there were a lot of people whose businesses just took off during 2020. And then there were people who lost everything. I watched a lot of people that I know lose everything, their entire life savings, their entire business went out the window. I mean, it's just something you can't plan for, under the best of circumstances. So, you get to decide what it means. But when the smoke cleared, I thought, all right, here we go. If I'm going to do this, now's the time to do it. But at the same time, I gave myself permission. All right, if it's just not in me anymore, that's okay too, But fortunately, I didn't go to that place. So.
Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah. So as you're talking, I'm connecting with my transition from, kind of a traditional corporate healthcare environment and just showing up for these meetings and just feeling the sense of dread in the body, right? With this whole core and just like, oh my gosh, I just literally could not go to one more meeting. So kind of made a plan and quit and started my private practice, and just like, it was terrifying. Yet my body was just screaming, you cannot do this for another 10, 20 years. I don't care about the retirement fund. I don't care about the IRA. I don't care about this, that. I just wasn't living in alignment with my energy, right? My purpose, my energy.
Well, I think we have to give ourselves a little grace too when, I'm not saying you should just go into something blind. Well, let me just see what happens. I'm just going to try this. I think you have to weigh your options and kind of see what you think is going to be the best plan for you, right? But having said all that, a lot of what we think is important in today's world really isn't important, right? We don't put enough emphasis on the things that truly matter. And for a lot of people after the pandemic, it was a chance to really take a look at all of that. And for me, it's like now when I look at how my business is set up, it's like that wouldn't have happened had everything stayed. I mean, eventually I probably would have gotten here. So sometimes, I guess what I'm trying to say is that sometimes the things that we really don't plan for can turn out to be the best things for us. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I'm just trying to say too, just listen to your body, right? Listen to your body, right? It will direct you as to which path to take, right? Which trailhead am I going to take, right? This feels great, doesn't feel good. Oh my gosh, I have so much anxiety here. Just listen to the body. That can also really direct you towards purpose. Absolutely.
Totally.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, you've mentioned the relevance piece. You've said this a couple of times, right? It's really important to stay relevant. You've talked a little bit about resistance, being resilient, and you've talked about, staying strong. So let's talk a little bit about that, relevance, resiliency, and staying strong, especially as women, right? In this season, right? 50s, 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So let me start with relevance first, because I think it's a term that I don't think a lot of people really understand completely. But for me, staying relevant means two things are coming up for me. One is, how true are you being to your purpose? Okay. Which really ultimately just means how much in alignment are you staying with the path that you want to be taking? Right. And are you doing it on your terms? And the other thing with relevance is remaining a big piece of the conversation, right? I mean, think about it. Businesses that stay relevant stay front of mind with their customers, right? And clients, right? Programs that continue to run year after year after year, remain critical for people's success, right? And I think when we look at how we live and how we do things, for us to stay relevant, it's really about involving ourselves in things where we find that that our lives are still meaningful for us, and that we're still feeling like we're in a position where we can give back and we can make contributions and feel like, hey, life is worth living because it is, right? I think when we get to a place and we start to feel like we're not relevant is when we start to not make very good decisions for ourselves. And we start to believe that we don't matter and that ship has sailed and whatever. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people, as they get older, fall into that trap because they base a lot of their identity on, say, their work or their marriage or their role as a parent. Not that anything's wrong with any of that, but that's not the way life's supposed to be lived. It's supposed to be multiple things, because we're capable of feeling really intense things. We're capable of achieving really amazing things, right? As human beings.
Yeah.
And when we do all those things, then we stay strong. We stay important. We stay focused. We stay, we stay in that high vibration, which allows us to be exposed to the things that we really want and the things that I think as human beings we really seek out on a daily basis. And when we don't do those things, then we tend to, fall into the bad habits more, whether it's gambling, depression, drinking, whatever it is, right? It becomes more of a Band-Aid, and ultimately, why do we do that? We do that because we're trying to fill a void within us, right?
There's pain, there's some suffering, right? There's dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We're looking outside of ourselves for something to fix it. Right. When really the whole point of living according to living your compass path, the way I teach it is you have everything that you need inside of you already. It's all about, keeping your energy in a place where it's serving you and it's working for you.
Yeah. I 100% align with that. I believe it all starts with us, right? It all starts right here, right? Right here. For me, it starts right here. Right? Nothing on the outside, right, can sway, right? If I'm being true to myself, right? It all starts with us, which is so cool because that means everybody's on a completely different journey, right? Everybody has, a unique path through this whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do think that in today's society in particular, I do think that we have a lot of people who are thinking that someone is going to come and save them. We have a large part of the population that will not take responsibility for anything. We have people who continually believe that it's somebody else's fault that they're where they are. And we have people who, quite frankly, are just kind of making their bed. So that's the way it's going to be. Okay, stay right where you are. But that doesn't mean that that's what I have to do or that what you have to do or somebody else. So, for anyone listening, understand that when people say things like that, it's always coming from where they are. It's never coming from where you are. Right. And people will continually react based on what they believe. So if someone says, well, Kate, that's just crazy, that'll never work. You can sit there and go, okay, I'm curious. Tell me why. Because it's really about where they are. It's not about where you are.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. I'm a therapist, right? And I can't tell you how many times a week I have to do that reframe, right? This isn't about you, it's about them, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's human nature to be familiar with that. And I've done it. I found myself in that situation. Honestly, it still happens today. I mean, we're human beings, right? But you have to look in the mirror and be willing to take responsibility or nothing.
100%. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Fantastic. So how about some how-tos, right? Some tips and strategies for listeners, if they may be feeling stuck or they're a little lost with this whole purpose thing, how might you coach somebody, help them kind of get on the path?
The first thing I generally ask people is, I usually want people to walk me through what a typical day is like for them, because I can usually find where some imbalances are just in the daily habits. And that's the health and fitness expert in me, so because it's not an accident. If you're, killing yourself, you might be making the money and having the success and the status at work or in your business. But if your personal life looks like crap, then we have to look at that. That's a mismanagement of energy, right? So we want to look at that. So I'll typically, for anyone listening, challenge you to look at how you're living every day. There should be at least 3 things that you're doing for yourself personally, okay, that should enhance the rest of your life, right? And for me, those I like to call them the big rocks, because if you read Atomic Habits, you got to read that, right? Mm-hmm. It's physical activity. And look, that can be a workout. It can be just movement during the day, but you got to move your body, sleep and rest, and managing stress. Okay. All of those 3 things there are critical for achieving any kind of success in your life. The next tip I would offer anyone is, and I'm honestly, before 2020, I wasn't a big journaler. I just, I'm a great writer. I love to write. It's very easy for me. And it's why I have a book on my calendar for 2024 as one of my goals. But I like to encourage people to do what I call a brain dump, where you might take 5 minutes and just dump your brain. Just write down, and it might all be bad stuff. It might be my husband's a jerk. My child's acting out. My dog's being a pain in the butt. I don't have any good food in the house. I can't pay the bill. I mean, it might be all negative stuff, right? But you got to get it out. You can't just keep thinking it. And I'm a little guilty of this because I tend to be, I used to be much more of a thinker than I was a feeler. And now I'm like much more balanced as far as that goes, because there's only so much that we can do in our head. So you have to empty that. Okay. And then the third tip I would just offer is every day you got to check in with yourself. Is what I'm doing really lighting me up? Is what I'm doing really exciting me? How do I feel when I do that? You sort of have to take an inventory every day of that. Those are rocks every single day that I look at. And that's usually where I start with somebody, because if someone's stuck in their business or their personal life, we want to look at things from the habit perspective. And then we want to look at how we can channel that into, how how you're showing up for the rest of your life. Right. So those are just some easy, simple things to begin with. The brain dump really helps because it kind of challenges you to look at what you're thinking, because really, what you think about the most is what will show up the most in your life.
100%. That's where your energy will take you. Yeah.
And on top of that, if you keep resisting something, that something is going to keep showing up too. So, and resistance could show up because it makes you feel uncomfortable. You don't like it. You have a thought that it's hard. I'm not good at this. I suck at this, whatever it is, right? That's just resistance. So what if you just said, okay, I'm owning it. I'm not very good at that. That's not resisting it anymore, right? So it's that too.
I love that.
I have a very simplistic way of like saying that because I'm very much of a straight talker. You know, I'm no BS at all. No smoke and mirrors. What you see is what you get, because I feel like there's enough of that in the world right now. And we need to be honest with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really my job, to be honest with you and anyone else. Right.
That. I love that. So thank you. Thank you. What if somebody is super stuck? What if somebody is super stuck? What might be, how might you help them kind of look at their lives, right? They're lost. They can't see their purpose. They can't check in with the body. They can't find a thread. What might you suggest to help somebody in that kind of situation kind of get some movement going?
Okay. Well, then the good question. I think the first thing I would ask them is I'd want them to kind of talk about it. Okay. Tell me why you think that. I'd want them to kind of just talk about it, because when we talk about something, we're giving life to it. Right. And then I would kind of like let it sit for a minute. And then I would say, okay, is that really true? Is it true? Mm-hmm. You know, and I think you have to challenge people on that. And then, because it's not, finding your purpose isn't something that you're just going to go to the store and buy. You know, it's a process. You're not going to just go on Amazon and what is my purpose and be able to buy it and have it shipped to your front door. But that's the mentality that so many people have because they expect results quickly, right? So, you know, I think what we have to do first is we have to look at where it's coming from. We have to look at what's wrong in here first. And we have to talk about it. We have to give life to that. And we don't want to do a lot of that in today's world. We want to sweep things under the rug and just move on to the next thing. So typically when someone's on a retreat with me, that's one of the first things that we do. We say, I have them kind of paint a picture of what their life is now. Then I'll have them kind of write a letter to themselves in the future from their future self. Tell me what your life looks like now. And what we want to look at is, okay, we want to talk about the problem, but we don't want to talk about the problem all the time. We want to be talking about where it is that we want to go. It's like what my coach always tells me. She's like, let's not talk about what we don't want. Let's talk about what we want.
I love that. Yeah. Let's not focus on what you don't want, right? Focus on what you do want and where you're going.
Part of what we do when we're figuring out our compass path is we want to have that vision of what our future looks like. And we want to be talking about that so that, you know, we get back to our life, say, and something's not working, then, you know, when I'm with somebody after we've been on a retreat, I'll say, wait a minute, I thought you were the director. That doesn't sound like what the director would say. Oh, well, I'm just telling it like it is. I'm like, really? Is that true? That's not what does the director do? How does the director make a decision like that? You know, because we have to just own it and claim that where it is that we want to go instead of making excuses.
Yeah, I love that. So where do you think, if somebody's kind of on this journey, where do you think retreats and travel and getting away and connecting with like-minded people, where do you think all that kind of fits in to this kind of compass path?
Well, I think we're creatures of habit, first off. We tend to do the same things when we're at home. And look, routine, I'm never going to say that routine is not a good thing. The health and fitness expert in me is all about consistency and finding a plan that works and repeating it, because that's how we teach ourselves a new habit. That's how we get to where we want to be. We don't just snap our fingers. This isn't like a fairy tale, right? And things just appear in front of us, right? So, but having said that, I feel like because of the fact that we are so used to doing the same things, that's why when you're at a retreat with other people and you're having a different conversation, to me, that is like lighting the fire. To me, that can be such a difference maker for people when they're in the room having a different conversation. You know, when you're away from the things that are familiar, you know, our brain wants to look for what we know. And so well, I don't know if I can do that. Well, you don't know my husband. I don't know if I can do that. I've heard that a lot from some of my people. So I'm like, well, but we're not talking about that right now. We're here. So let's talk about what we're going to do here. Right. And I just think I think people, for once people give themselves permission to do that, then they start to really see what's possible for them. Now, I'm not saying that's the magic bullet, but it is the first step into helping people move, and having that community of like-minded people and making new friends and having that support system is really key.
But I think it's vital. It's vital. Yeah, it's vital.
Yeah, because, we can be home with friends, and look, we might go have a girls' night out. That's different, right? But we're still at home. We're still in our familiar surroundings. When you travel, there's nothing that stretches your boundaries more than traveling. Because you talk about everything being taken out of your control. That's pretty much the case when you travel, right? So when you go somewhere and you're in a different environment and you sort of have to surrender. You sort of have to say, you know what, it's going to work out the way it's going to work out.
Yeah. You got to roll with it, right? You got to roll with it. You got to adapt. You got to respond. It's beautiful.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think I agree. The power of like-minded people in a community, retreats or traveling, I think there's just so much magic in those three things right there. So if you don't have community, if listeners don't have community, I would encourage you to get out there and find something. It doesn't have to be expensive. It can be no cost, right? But just get out there and find some like-minded people to connect with.
Yeah. And look, I'll just say it again. We're creatures of habit. We get really good at what we do often. But what you do the most is really who you are. So when you want to look at if you want to change something about your life, you've got to look at what you're doing every day. That's really who you are.
Yeah.
Right. So if you want to feel better and be healthier, look at how you're living every day. Look at your pantry. Look at how active you are. Look at how much you're on your phone or you're using electronics. I hate to sound simplistic, but it has to start somewhere,
Yeah.
And I realize for a lot of people, it isn't that simple, but I still think that it's still your choice. You can decide to do something about it or not.
Yeah. And it can be small, right? It could be, it could be a walk around the block. It could be an extra salad. It could be, getting on Facebook and joining a group that you feel curious about, right? It could be small steps.
Yeah.
Right?
It can be something little, but you have to
do something.
You have to put your big girl pants on or your big boy pants on and just go and do it instead of talking about it.
You got to take some action steps, right?
Yeah,
you have to. You can't just go from A to Z in one big stride, right? You just got to go through the whole alphabet, all these little steps. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, Alison, as we kind of begin to wrap up here a little bit, is there anything else you would like to share or add today that maybe I didn't ask, we didn't get to cover? Anything else you want to?
I just want to make sure that anyone listening understands that, everything that you really want for yourself is available, and that you can decide to begin today. I think we have this tricky thought that, I'm so far behind, or I'm a certain age that just won't work for me. And okay, granted, if you're 60 years old, probably playing a pro sport isn't going to work, right? Or, going to the gym every single day and taking classes might not work if you're physically impaired in some way. But I still say that life is what you make of it. And you can decide today to do something different, and the more you start believing that, watch how your world will change.
Yeah. Just as an example, I'm kind of a late bloomer. I started backpacking at 55.
I love it.
I wrote my first book around 57, and then I started a podcast at 60, right? So I have to tell you, never too late. It is never too late.
It's never too late.
Age is not a limitation, right? A chronicle age is just that. It's a chronological number. It does not kind of dictate or predict what we can or can't do. It really doesn't.
Well, and I think you have to just, be really honest with yourself, but at the same time, show yourself a little grace and compassion too. I mean, we know what we know, but we don't know what we don't know, and we can't beat up on ourselves and think I should have known better. I should have done something different. I should have, you can, a friend of mine has a saying, she's like, you can shoulda yourself to death. Right. Yeah. So you got to be careful with that too. You got to show yourself compassion and grace and say, you know what, even though I didn't know that then, guess what? I know differently today.
Right.
Yeah, what's already happened has happened, just.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, for me, that is the epitome of like learning and growth, right? In these lives, I think part of our purpose is honestly to learn and grow, right? To live, to love, to learn and to grow, right? And we are constantly learning. We can constantly learn and we can constantly grow, right? And that is part, for me, part of the secret sauce.
Well, and I think too, at the end of the day, life is really short. We're here on this planet Earth for such a short period of time, relatively speaking. And I just think every day you have an opportunity to do something different that might change your life. And you just have to look at it like that.
100%. 100%. So my final question is the sage advice question. If you had one piece of sage advice to give to listeners about living intentionally, what would that be?
Oh gosh, I can actually just go down the list, but I think the one piece I would offer is trust your gut, your gut, but at the same time, understand that if something really scares you, that may be something you should look at, that could be something that could change your life. Right. So trust your gut and most importantly, trust yourself.
Yeah.
You will figure it out.
Love that. Yeah. So, Alison, thank you. What a powerful conversation. I really do feel I connect with a lot of people, a lot of listeners. So, again, thank you for your time and your energy.
Of course.
And yes.
Yeah, I appreciate the invite. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So where can people find you? Right? If they want to connect with you or learn more about you, where can people find you?
Well, you can tune into my podcast. I have two. The Ultimate Journey of Self-Care, which drops every Tuesday. We're on every major podcast platform. And then if you have a business, you can check out my business podcast, Creating the World's Best Client Experiences. And that drops on Thursdays. But you can also just come over to my website and learn a little bit about me. That's www.thealisonk.com. I spell my name with one L, so it's thealisonk.com. You can read a little bit about my story, about where we're going on trips, any of my programs, or any of that. You can just always connect with me and say, hey, I heard you on Kate's podcast. Thank you. You can always reach out to me for that as well.
Fantastic. And for listeners, as always, I'll put all those links in the show notes so you'll have no excuses to connect and learn a little bit about Alison and what she's doing and her retreats too. They sound pretty amazing. Yeah,
absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you again. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. I truly appreciate you and your time. I love to hear from listeners, so connect with me at katechampionauthor.com. Remember to grab your free hiking guide, and please take a quick moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the show. Thanks so much. Take care. Until next time. Hey, me again. Just a reminder, this podcast should not be considered professional advice. It's also not a substitute for mental, physical, or any other healthcare-related treatment. For any questions about your condition and or concerns, please contact a fully licensed healthcare professional. Thank you.